Hi guys! So if you remember my videos from last year, in October I did some Halloween themed videos and I went to one of the most haunted cities in the country, St. Augustine, and did a video talking about their ghost stories. Well, it's October again, but this time I wanted to come to a city even more haunted than St. Augustine, and this city is arguably the most haunted one in the country, and that is Savannah, Georgia.
So what is it about Savannah that makes it so haunted? Despite being a beautiful city, Savannah has a very dark and bloody past. Wars, fires, and yellow fever have devastated the city multiple times throughout history, and under these streets are where the bodies of these victims still lay. To this day, when construction work is done in Savannah, coroners have to be present because it is almost guaranteed that bones will be found. So when you are walking through Savannah, you are literally walking over the dead. Practically every building in this town has a story, ranging from housing yellow fever victims to suicide and murder.
Now I wish I could tell you all the stories about Savannah, but unfortunately there are too many to tell. However, I am going to tell you the few that stood out to me the most, so let's get started.
The first place I'm going to be taking you guys is the Bonaventure Cemetery, which was established in 1846. However, it was called Evergreen Cemetery at the time. When it was purchased by the city of Savannah in 1907, it acquired its new name, Bonaventure. This beautiful cemetery is over 100 acres and is the final resting place of a few well-known individuals, such as musician Johnny Mercer and Conrad Aiken. It also once housed the famous sculpture Bird Girl, which rose to fame after being on the cover of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which we'll talk a bit about that story more later. But for now, I want to tell you all the story of Little Gracie. Gracie Watson died of pneumonia 2 days before Easter when she was just 6 years old. Her father, who managed the Pulaski Hotel at the time, commissioned sculptor John Walls to make a life-size sculpture of his daughter using a photograph for reference. Her parents never recovered from her death and eventually went back to their home in New England, leaving Gracie laid to rest by herself in Savannah. When Gracie was alive, she was known to be a very playful child and would often entertain the guests of the Pulaski Hotel. Nowadays, her ghost is often seen at Johnson Square, which is where the Pulaski Hotel used to stand. People have claimed to see her running through the bushes and interacting with people here, much like she did when she was alive. But back at the cemetery, she is often visited by guests who leave her items, and it is said that if you try to remove one of the items left at her grave, tears of blood will stream down the statue's eyes.
Now the next stop we are going to is the Sorrel? I can't talk. This one. Now this house has quite the story, and it has more than one story. Let's take a look.
The Sorrel-Weed House was built in the 1840s and was owned by Francis Sorrel, a wealthy man from Haiti. He married his first wife, Lucinda, shortly after arriving to the United States, but she died just a few years into their marriage. And so Francis married her younger sister, Matilda. He and Matilda had 8 children together, 3 of which never made it to adulthood. The oldest of this 3 was named after her mother, Matilda, but was called Little Tilda instead. Little Tilda died at 6 years old in the house on the 4th floor of scarlet fever. Her ghost is one of the most reported ghosts to be seen in this house and is often heard running through the halls. However, the most well-known ghosts of this house would be those of Francis' wife Matilda and a slave named Molly. Francis was having an affair with Molly, to the point that he even set up a private room in the carriage house for her. Now, whether this affair was consensual or not is still unknown, but it is suspected that it was forced upon Molly. Matilda eventually found out about this affair, and after discovering it, she took her own life by jumping off the second-story balcony, landing headfirst in the courtyard. Not long after, Molly was also found hanging, but whether it was a suicide or she was murdered is still unclear. Both women are said to haunt this house. But their deaths are not the only thing that is haunted about this house. Before the house was built, its location is where the British barracks once stood during the second bloodiest battle of the American American Revolution, the Siege of Savannah in 1779. More than 1,000 men lost their lives in just 1 hour. Their bodies were never given a proper burial, and the city was built over the battlefield. It is rumored that the ghosts of those that died in the battle haunt near the home and on Madison Square. But that's not all. One of France's sons was a doctor who specialized in amputation and used the basement of the house as his office. Many soldiers injured from the Civil War were his patients, and many died in this room. A ghost that is sometimes spotted is that of a man missing limbs on the floor of the basement, facing down and squirming towards you.
We didn't see anything sketchy. In fact, it's a very beautiful house, but the story is quite intriguing.
Now, before we get to the last house on our list, let me give you a few honorable mentions of some other haunted places in the city. Like the Pirate House, which is one of the oldest buildings in Savannah. Pirates and sailors used to frequent here, and there were tunnels running from the rum cellar to the river. These tunnels were said to be used for smuggling gold, rum, and even men who were shanghaied after drinking too much and then forced to work at sea. The most famed ghost to haunt here is Captain Flint, and he is said to have died in the room upstairs. Then there's the 1790 Inn, where room 204 often has reports of strange things such as jewelry and bed coverings being moved. These strange occurrences are caused by Anna, a woman who was to be in an arranged marriage but fell in love with a sailor instead. After he left and the ships were no longer in her sight, she threw herself from a third-floor window onto a brick courtyard, but some say it was her furious, soon-to-be husband that pushed her. The Moon River Brewing Company is another famous haunted building, which has many ghosts due to numerous deaths over the years. During the Yellow Fever, it was used as a hospital where hundreds of people, mostly children, died in the upper floors of the building. Ghosts here are known to throw bottles, graze against visitors, and grab them. Women have often reported feeling cold in the bathroom or that they are locked in a stall. The most popular guests are Toby, who haunts the basement, and a lady in white who appears at the top of the staircase. Now, going back to what I mentioned earlier, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. This book, which was published in 1994 and later turned into a movie, tells the story of what happened here in this house, the Mercer-Williams House.
We actually just went on a tour, but you aren't allowed to take pictures or anything like that. But this house has quite the story. There was a murder that took place here, and it took place in that room right there. It's a beautiful house, but like I said, I could not record anything inside, but I will tell you the story with some pictures that I pulled from Google.
In 1969, a man named Jim Williams purchased this home. Known for helping preserve Savannah's historic districts and restoring many homes throughout Savannah, Jim also renovated this house that he called home. Jim Williams was known for throwing lavish parties, and at one of these parties, he met Danny Hansford, who ended up becoming not only his assistant, but his lover. And their relationship was a bit complicated, to say the least. On May 2nd, 1981, the two got into a heated argument. Danny pushed over a grandfather clock and stormed into the study where Jim was. Danny pulled out a gun on him and pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. Jim then grabbed a gun from his desk and shot Danny to death. Jim called the cops, and upon arrival, he told the police, "I shot him. He's in the other room." There, they found Danny, face down with no pulse. Jim claimed self-defense, but it has been speculated that Jim may have tampered with the scene before the police arrived. Jim was arrested and became the only person in the state of Georgia to be tried 4 times for the same crime. During the 4th and final trial, he was acquitted. Jim returned home a free man, but Danny's ghost did not let him live in peace. Angered by the lack of justice for his death, Danny's ghost haunted Jim to the point that he brought in a voodoo practitioner to help get Danny out of the house. But it did not work, and Danny continued to haunt him and get his ultimate revenge. Just months after his acquittal, one of Jim's employees came to the house. When no one answered the door, he let himself in and found Jim lying dead in the same area he had shot Danny just years prior. Jim was 59 and died of pneumonia and heart failure, but some say Danny might have had something to do with it. Both the ghosts of Jim and Danny are said to haunt this house. Guests that feel Danny's presence say he is still angry that no one was held accountable for his death and see him either in the study where he died or roaming the halls. As for Jim, he is also seen where his body was found, but guests and neighbors have reported that lavish parties similar to the ones he threw while he was still alive continue to take place in the house. His annual Christmas parties were especially well known to be over the top, and he threw his last one just weeks before his death. It is said if you pass by the house during the holiday season, you can get a glimpse of his Christmas party through the windows. But while the murder of Danny Hansford is what made this house famous, it is not the only tragedy that took place here. In 1969, an 11-year-old boy named Tommy Downs was exploring the abandoned house before it was bought by Jim Williams. Tommy was known to love chasing birds and had either gone to the roof or one of the balconies hoping to catch a pigeon. Unfortunately, Tommy lost his balance and plunged off the side of the 3-story house. He was impaled by the spikes on the gate surrounding the property and died instantly. One of those spikes is still broken to this day, and his ghost is said to still roam the property. Some people claim to see his ghost fall from the house, a never-ending loop of his final moments, while others see him peering through the windows. The house is now owned by Jim's sister Dorothy. Tours are available for the bottom floor only, but the family chooses not to discuss the murder or the ghosts of this house. Now, while there are many more haunted stories of Savannah, those are the few that I found the most interesting and wanted to tell. And for anybody that wants to know more, I would highly recommend visiting the city yourself. It is beautiful and one of my favorite places to go. But thank you for watching, and who knows where the next haunted city will be. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!